So hello, welcome to this video, and then I just want to talk about the new RFC of Angular. I was just on Twitter today and I just got one post from Matthew, aka Jean-Mesh, and then he was just talking about this new RFC of Angular, and then I just went on GitHub and then I read this new RFC. So to be fair, I haven't completely read the RFC in very much detail, but just I got the overall idea, I would say, and then I will go again to try to read it in much detail. But when I read that RFC, the only thing that came to my mind is that NestJS, I'm not talking about Next.js, I'm talking about NestJS and then AnalogJS, both of them, they become obsolete. And I just made a post on Twitter to talk about that I think that NestJS and AnalogJS, both of them, they will become obsolete with this new RFC of Angular. So why did I think about that? Because I think that that post it got some traction, some views on Twitter. There are people that are wondering why I think that AnalogJS and NestJS, why I think that they will become obsolete. Well, let me start with NestJS because it's a library that I loved a lot. I guess I would even say that's a framework. So NestJS is a framework, not to be confused with Next.js, which is a framework of using React and then adding some more elements to it. So that's Next.js. So Nest.js is a framework that uses Angular dependency injection paradigm, but on the server side, and then Next.js can also be used to server to run an Angular application. So when this framework came about a few years ago now, so I love that framework because I feel like Node.js had always lacked this dependency injection feature. So NestJS, in a sense, they tried to bring this dependency injection paradigm on the server side. And then since it was similar to what Angular itself, what Angular is doing, so it's kind of easy for an Angular developer just to go to the server side, to the backend side, and also just to write a piece of code that almost looks similar with the dependency injection of Angular. So I love NestJS when I came about that framework, and I started some tutorial about NestJS I would say 5 years ago. So I did a few tutorial about NestJS, but somehow I felt that NestJS it lacked tractions from the JavaScript community. I felt that it lacked tractions, and then also I felt that maybe the maintainer somehow he got caught between having a great framework and then trying to sell services, and then I would say that the maintainer or the main maintainer, I don't know, the maintainers, I felt that they didn't maybe communicate maybe what is their vision about the framework to the community, so that in order for them to have many people on board. So I mean, that's my personal opinion, but I felt like this framework, NestJS, though is a great framework, but it hasn't really evolved the way it should have been. So that's one of the reasons why even myself, I haven't done a lot of tutorial about NestJS lately. For me, the framework is great, but I felt like this framework it lacked something to transition between being great and being adopted by the community. So for me now, coming to the point why I think that this new RFC of Angular will make NestJS obsolete is that I feel like this new RFC, it will also gradually bring this dependency injection of Angular to the server side. I mean, it's too early to tell. I haven't really gone into too much detail about how this new RFC is going to use server-side rendering. But for me, the first thing when I read that RFC is that gradually we'll have this dependency injection of Angular that we love so much also to the server side. And if that happens, for me, that's a banger. It means that NestJS, well, it will become obsolete in the sense that this feature that makes NestJS to stand out, this dependency feature, now Angular will have it directly. Well, granted, NestJS has other libraries, that really makes that framework great. They have a lot of batteries with different libraries that really makes it to stand out. Nevertheless, now that Angular will have it directly within the framework, I think that it will be easier for others contributors to just bring those libraries that have made NestJS to stand out. Now, if I talk about AnalogJS, why I think that AnalogJS also become obsolete, well, AnalogJS is great because it tried to patch the gap between what Angular has and what NestJS is bringing to React to really make React one of the most dominant framework in the front-end community. So AnalogJS tried to patch that gap, but the only thing is that AnalogJS is still relatively new, and well, again, the same thing with NestJS. I feel like AnalogJS also is suffering from having traction within the community because sometimes we may wonder, AnalogJS here, Angular here, where do I have to use one over the other? But now that Angular is bringing those features of AnalogJS directly in the framework, well, AnalogJS will still be there, but personally, I don't think that AnalogJS will do as good as NestJS for React or NestJS for Vue. I don't think that AnalogJS will do as good as those two, but AnalogJS will be good for one thing. AnalogJS, it will become like an experimental background for Angular. And it will really help Angular to see where they could go next. And for me, I think that this RFC that is even coming to Angular, I can say that it's thanks to the effort of AnalogJS. But on its own, I don't think that AnalogJS will really become like this meta framework that will overtake Angular. I think Angular will remain there. And well, you just try to bring some features of AnalogJS, the main feature that makes AnalogJS to stand out, so Angular will try to bring them in. And this RFC is just the beginning of that. So that's this thing that I had in mind when I made my post today to talk about the fact that NestJS, again, not NestJS for React, even though I talk also about NestJS in this short video, but mainly I'm talking about NestJS, which try to really bring the idea of Angular but to the server side. So my post was about the fact that NestJS and AnalogJS, they will become obsolete thanks to this RFC. So that's the idea I had in mind, and we'll see in the month, in the years to come, if my prediction is good, if my vision about this framework is the right one. But well, that's the thought that came to my mind when I read RFC. So hope you like this quick video talking about this new RFC of Angular. And if you do, don't forget to subscribe, to like this video, and then don't hesitate to let me know in the comment what you think. And I'll be really happy to see what your opinion on this matter, like NestJS and AnalogJS becoming obsolete. So until the next video.